Welcome to the NNJR Trackside Classroom Series. Today's topic is for student drivers. We're talking about passing and traffic management. New drivers on track are frequently surprised that the traffic and dealing with traffic, both cars in front and cars behind, is more challenging than actually learning to drive the track, to drive the line and so on. And so today we're going to try to both take some of the mystery out of that, as well as provide a number of tips and such that will hopefully make that less of an issue for you and the others that are on track with you. So with that, we're going to dive in. We have the normal disclaimer that says there are risks in this sport that we all like to do, and that we all take on those risks in a willing basis, and that the advice here is intended to help us all be safe, but there are no guarantees. So with that said, the surprising thing perhaps is that passing and traffic have a huge impact, not only on safety, that's pretty obvious, but on the fun factor, because they directly impact the driver attitude. If you're impatient and not willing to deal with the traffic that's in front, or perhaps you're bothered by the traffic behind, it definitely gets in the way of having fun. So as a result, we emphasize courtesy because it's all about, being courteous to the drivers around us. And that applies whether you're taking a pass or being passed. And as the slide says, effective passing is all about communication and cooperation. Both drivers have to be on the same page. That's what keeps DE safe. It's what distinguishes DE from racing. And because there are never two cars alongside, except when both have agreed that that's what they want to have happen. So let's dive in. Some basics. We never pass without a signal from the driver. Even if you see an instructor giving a signal, which shouldn't happen, but if it does, you can ignore that. One clear signal for each car, and that applies whether you're giving a pass or taking a pass. If a car in front of you gets a pass signal, that doesn't apply to you. You have to wait. The driver should put their hand back inside the car and then give a second pass signal. Now, as a general rule, with some exceptions, in a few cases, at a few tracks, if you're giving a pass, you're going to stay on line. Do not move over. Some people think it's polite to move over. That is absolutely incorrect. The important thing is to be predictable. And if you stay on line, you're going to be predictable. The overtaking car is going to go offline and give the car being passed plenty of room. And now there are exceptions, and Lime Rock is one of those exceptions on No Name Straight, where if you give a pass, you're obliged to stay left at the kink. The same applies at Mid-Ohio as an example. Same applies at VIR. Those tracks have kinks in long straightaways, and the car giving a signal stays to the left at that kink where they otherwise might be to the right. But those are the exception that prove the rule in this case. And of course, we want to give the pass as soon as we can, but we have to be comfortable doing that. So one of the things that distinguishes students from more advanced drivers give pass signals much, much faster and much sooner on a straightaway than typically happens in a lower group. So how do we get comfortable on track with traffic? Well, like anything, we prepare. We can study the track so that we know where the passing zones are. And by the way, which side we're going to pass on. Every track we go to has most straights, and meaning most pass zones, have a mandatory side. And so you can easily learn that in advance. Now, if you're brand new in green, the first day, your instructor is going to help you monitor the cars behind and indicate when you should give a pass signal. On the second day, they're going to ask you to at least give the pass signals on the front straight and perhaps others. In other run groups, if you're in yellow or blue, you should be able to give and take signals in every passing zone. Your instructor should not be having to work with you, other than as a double check. If you're relying on your instructor, then something's wrong. So we're going to talk about traffic management here in several ways, starting with when do we want to look in the mirrors. And before we dive in, though, I'm going to talk about mirrors, because oftentimes drivers do not have their mirrors adjusted properly. And obviously, they're essential to being aware of the cars behind, and we need to use them so that we're not surprised. So you've heard me talk about this before, but I'm going to emphasize mirror adjustment again if you haven't heard it, because we need to adjust those side mirrors so that they eliminate or reduce your blind spots. So the rearview mirror, hopefully you have adjusted properly to see the entire rear window and as far behind the car as you can practically see. But the side mirrors, we're going to push out further than you probably have them. And here's what you do. You rest your head against the driver's window and then push the mirror out until you can just barely see the left rear corner of the car. On the right side, you do the same thing. You lean your head under the rear mirror, push that one out. When you do that, instead of having mirrors adjusted as you see in the diagram here, which is probably where you have them adjusted, unless you've heard me talk about this before, now you're going to not have a blind spot. Or if you do have one, it's going to be small, and small enough in general that a car can't hide in it. So I cannot emphasize enough how important this is to do when you're on track, but also in your day-to-day driving on the highway. This is a huge benefit in traffic on the interstate or any place else. So make sure your side mirrors are adjusted. If you're not sure, ask your instructor to work with you to get them adjusted properly. Now, assuming we have them adjusted, when do we want to look in the mirrors? Well, entering a passing zone, we've already indicated this. As soon as we can get the car straight, even sooner if we can, we want to look. And if a car is there, we want to give a signal. We also want to look at the end of a passing zone just before we get on the brakes to see how many cars are back there and how fast are they closing, because that's going to tell us something about how soon we're going to have to give signals at the next opportunity. For the same reason, the middle of a longer passing zone, if we're on the main back straight at Watkins Glen or VIR, long straightaways, we definitely want to look several times on those straightaways. But even a Lime Rock front straight is long enough that a fast car can catch a slower car pretty quickly. So we want to look in the middle of the longer passing zones as well. And with the side mirrors adjusted, during a pass, we want to know where that car is. And so we're definitely going to look in the mirrors, when we're being passed. The one time we don't need to look in the mirrors, and that we shouldn't because we're busy, is in a corner. Once we're in the braking zone and headed into the corner, we do not need to look in the mirrors until we're exiting the corner. And sometimes if you're a new driver, this can be a hard thing to learn, because if you know there's a car back there, it's weighing on your mind and you're worried about it and worried about giving a pass. You have to program your mind to simply ignore anybody that's behind once you enter the braking zone. You'll get there, but that is a learned behavior, trust me. So how do we check the mirrors? We do it with frequent, quick glances at that rearview mirror. And if we see something, then we glance again. And obviously we do the same thing with the side mirrors when the cars are close. The second glance is to confirm detail. So if we glance and we see there's a car approaching us in the back, we want to look again to make sure, is it really a silver car? Or maybe there's two cars back there. And can we judge, how fast they're closing? Are they going to catch us right away? Or maybe it's going to take a while. We're not going to get fixated though. Our focus, our main high definition vision is forward, looking at where we want the car to go. So these are using that high definition vision, but with a split-second glance. And this needs to become a habit, something that you just do automatically. And just to illustrate that, watch my head in this video and watch where my head, glances to the right, to the rear view mirror. Oops, we didn't get to the video. What happened here? I'm not sure what happened there. Let me get back to that video. Okay, let's see if this works again. Here we go. All right, so notice there's my mirror glance after I came up the uphill. I'm now in the middle of the corner. I'm busy with the corner. Now I look again, and so on. Same thing, coming down the hill, a glance. I'm driving through the corner. Now I'm going to look again, and you'll see that I'm actually giving a pass signal here and looking behind. So that frequency is what we should be striving for. Every opportunity as we exit a corner, and if we can, as we're going into a corner. Now, how do we give passing signals? Well, as early as possible, but we want to make sure it can be seen. That means the full arm over the roof in a right-hand pass. Some people like to tap the roof, to make sure their arm's fully extended. It helps to have contrasting color gloves or shirt. Notice in the picture here that the driver has a black shirt and a black car. Not very helpful. It'd be really helpful if the driver had bright red gloves or bright yellow gloves, something like that. So color can be quite helpful. Now, it's better in real life than the pictures make it look, but still, that can be very helpful. Now, obviously, one clear signal per car, hand inside between, and a brief lift is always in order. And it's especially true if you have a powerful car, and doubly true if the car behind is a slower car, or a lower horsepower car, probably not slower. And, as I've said before, we want to watch the cars as they go past in our mirrors so that we know everything's fine. Here's some things not to do. We do not want to race the passing car to the next corner, because that'll certainly lead to an unsafe situation. That's where the lift comes in. If we give a brief lift, there's no passing, there's no racing, and everything will be cool. At the same time, if there's a faster car behind, we do not want to hold it up. We want to send it around at the first opportunity. There's no reason to hold someone up. Now, here's some examples on the left side. Notice that in the yellow car on the left here, the driver has a white shirt, so we can see his arm, nice contrast with the yellow car. His hand, is less easy to see against the background here, but at least we can see it. And the car on the right, silver car, blue driving suit in this case, and black gloves. Not much contrast at all. Could easily be, red gloves in a case like that would make a lot more sense. Now, the one on the left is a pass at Lime Rock, and passing on the left between turns 2 and 3 makes sense. But this is very late. This is an example of a driver who waited way too long. He could have given this pass exiting Big Bend. Instead, he's almost entering the left-hander. And that's an example of someone, and the car behind was right behind him. It wasn't like the car caught him here. So So this is an example of a driver not paying enough attention and not reacting quickly enough to give a pass signal. Here's some examples of right-hand pass signals. And again, you can see how having some contrast really helps. And again, the photos are much worse than these look in real life, but you should see my point. The car top right, the driver's arm and such is almost the same color as the car. Unlike the car at lower left here, it's a red car with red gloves, but it's a black top. So the red gloves and the blue arm really have nice contrast with the car. So very easy to see that pass signal. Many people do give a right pass signal that doesn't quite make it all the way over the roof like this one does, but more like up in the air. But people know what that means, still doesn't make it quite the right way. So where do we give passing signals? Obviously, it has to be a passing zone. Obviously, if we're entering a passing zone, but we can and should give signals in the middle of a passing zone if a car is catching us quickly. That's why we want to glance in the mirror. And that is one of the best possible passes you can give, because neither car has to slow down at all. And that's the ideal pass, as we'll say in a minute. Now, if you're surprised, if you've just looked in the mirror and a car's there that wasn't there the last time you looked, now you have to decide, is there still room, or are we too close to the upcoming corner and I have to wait? But certainly not a late pass, not like the yellow car I just showed a minute ago, who's in the braking zone. If we're near the brake markers, then it's too late to give that pass. So Lime Rock as an example of passing zones, on the front straight, right side only. You remember I mentioned mandatory sides. Between 2 and 3 would generally pass on the left. No name passings on the right, but as I indicated before, the car giving the pass has to stay left at the kink. Between the uphill and west bend, we pass on the right, no passing going down the hill. So here's some other thoughts about when to give a passing signal. I said a moment ago, a car shows up that wasn't there before, and that's especially true if that car is a lower horsepower car than you are. If they caught you, they're faster than you. And this is, if we think about Lime Rock specifically, a lower horsepower car, I will say it differently. Lime Rock is not a horsepower track. A lower horsepower car can easily be much faster than a higher horsepower car at Lime Rock and some other tracks. And so, certainly be aware of that. Even if you can outdrag someone on a straightaway, that doesn't mean you're faster. So now, if you're getting held up in traffic, then some judgment's required. If there's a couple of cars in front of you and it's taking a little while to get by, and now a car catches you, you have to decide, well, maybe it's a car I want to send by, or maybe I just want them to wait while I wait to get by. Now, we've talked a lot about how to give passes, but how do we get a pass? How do we take a pass? Well, it's important the slide says present yourself, and this means make sure that car in front of you knows you're there. And that doesn't mean you're on their bumper going through a corner. What it means is exiting a corner, you're squarely behind them and waiting for that pass signal. If you're off to the side anticipating that pass signal, they may not even know you're there. So need to be square behind until you get the signal. Once you do get the signal, then immediately pass, no hesitation, not too close, beware of the other cars around. And if there's time, give a nice thank you wave to the driver you just passed. And by the way, if they catch you later, that same car catches you later, the same driver, then give them a pass back. That happens frequently. And here's some things not to do. chopping, which means passing a car and then immediately jumping in front of them, before the next corner. We don't want to tailgate. We don't want to weave. We don't want to flash lights. And any of those things will get you black flagged for aggressive driving. And that includes, taking a late pass. Now, I mentioned staying offline. So here's an example where I pass a car on no name straight and stay offline going into the uphill. So we're entering no name. There's pass signals, and I passed the car. He stayed left at the kink, and notice I'm entering the uphill. I'm not online at all, offline to the right, so that driver could easily stay online entering the uphill. That's the proper way to do it. That's what I would expect in a shorter passing zone like we have at Lime Rock and many other tracks. Shorter passing zones, you should just plan on entering offline, and only in a long pass zone where there's plenty of room to get back in front of a car should you consider getting back online before the upcoming corner. Trains can be frustrating, and they can make drivers impatient. So don't be that guy or gal at the head of the train, the choo-choo, as some people say. If there's two or more cars behind you, then you're the cause of the train. You're the choo-choo. And so you need to give passes as quickly as you can. Have your instructor help you, but don't do it by slowing down. If you slow down too much, more cars will catch you. So that's a balance. Again, your instructor is going to help you with that. One option you have in many cases is to roll through the pits. If there's a bunch of cars, maybe it works best just to roll through the pits, let them go, and then you can drive in a less crowded track. Now, if you're in the middle of a train and you get a faster car catching you, you may choose to send them around because maybe they'll get a pass signal faster than you would have, and that'll help you get a pass signal. But regardless, we have to be patient. And especially if there's a section where there's no passing, then obviously you're not going to get a signal. And if there's several cars in front, you have the option to roll through the pits. You also have the option to tell the chief instructor with the car numbers so that they're aware of whatever car or cars are slowing down the group. I may have mentioned this before, but an ideal pass is when the car being overtaken, sees the car coming, gives the pass signal with enough time that the car goes past without a lift. And that way both drivers, basically have uninterrupted laps as if there were no traffic on track. That works well where there's long straightaways. It's harder to do where there are short ones, but still, if you're watching your mirrors, you should know when a car that's back there, which corner they will be behind you where you should send them past. If I use Lime Rock as an example, if you're coming into Big Bend and you look in your mirror just before the brakes and see a car halfway down the front straight that wasn't there before, then it's possible by the time you get to Big Bend, you'll need to give a pass signal, or maybe it's a little bit later. But as you get more experience, you'll start to get a sense of the speed, and you'll know that, okay, that car, because I've seen it before, is probably not going to catch me until after the uphill, or maybe not even until the front straight next time. And as opposed to a different car that may be faster, that may for sure catch you going on to no name. So that way you're not you have fewer decisions to make. You know what to expect, and everybody is safer and happier when that happens. So to summarize, passing and dealing with traffic is a key to being safe and to having fun on track. It's really all about communication and cooperation, and really think in terms of etiquette and courtesy. We have to know and respect all the passing zones, including the mandatory sides. using our mirrors is an essential skill. Adjusting for the horsepower, either more or less, of cars around us is something we have to learn. When we're taking a pass, we want to look ahead. We want to be patient. Getting impatient is not a key to anything in this sport. And as a last reminder, you got to remember that driver in the other car may well be your friend or a future friend. But in any case, you're all part of the same run group. You're all out there to have fun and enjoy the event. So I hope you found some tips here that will be useful and that you can apply at your next event. I look forward to seeing you at the track and to everyone being safe in the traffic. So with that, I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see you at the track.